Hey there, welcome to the show. Today I have a very good friend with me, Jennifer Ragazzo. Jen is a soul-aligned wellness coach with a background in psychology, teaching, and coaching, blending deep emotional and spiritual work with functional health to help women heal from the inside out. With expertise in integrative nutrition, applied functional medicine, and naturopathy, she goes beyond symptom management to address subconscious patterns, unprocessed trauma, and energetic blocks. Through her Vibrant Rise functional wellness programs, she guides women in midlife to reconnect with their bodies, reclaim vitality, and embrace healing as an act of divine alignment.
Mm.
Hello and welcome.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here. This is so much fun, Claudia.
Me too. We're going to have an amazing conversation as we do
Mhm.
offline.
Yes, we do.
um, Jen and I have been friends for what, a decade?
A
Longer?
decade.
About a
Yeah.
decade? As we
Yeah.
got into the health coaching world. And we both been coaching hundreds, if not more, women over the years. And Jen is a unique coach. She really
Mhm.
is. And why I wanted to have her here today is because she has helped so many women address root causes of their symptoms. You know, you understand functional testing, supplement protocols, a lot of the things that I talk about here.
Mhm.
And you've seen a lot of improvement in your clients.
Yeah.
However, you have
Mhm.
found that while those things can be supportive, there's much more to the story when it comes
Mhm.
to healing.
Mhm.
And you dive deep into the metaphysical with clients. So, can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So, kind of leading up to our conversation on even what is the metaphysical and why I started to dig that deep with my clients and myself. It really has always been about, first and foremost, it's been my journey because my journey has led me to be able to show up and do the things that I do with my clients. And every single client that sits before me teaches me too. So while my clients are journeying into what they desire most, which is what we all desire most, which is peace. We want
Mm.
peace. We want freedom to be ourselves, to connect to true essence of who we are, who we've been created to be. And to be loved and seen and valued. I mean, that's at the core of what every single one of us wants. But many of us start the search for those things by searching for healing. And the healing is often in the physicals because it's our physical pains that won't go away that become the tap on the shoulder, the
Mm.
whisper that becomes the scream at times that has us going, okay, mercy, I'm going to go figure this out, figure out what is wrong with me. Do I need to eat something differently, take certain supplements, whatever the thing is? So my journey started as a very, very young adult. I won't go into all of the details, but my journey through healing just continued to lead me to deeper and deeper layers within myself as things would shift on the outside and a little bit, but yet I was still feeling the discontent. And that discontent, that deeper discontent, is what I like to call the divine discontent that has continued to invite me to go deeper, deeper and higher, deeper and higher. So, in my work with clients over the last decade, I've done a lot of there was a long season, I would say at least 10 years, where I was really in the trenches doing a lot of one-on-one coaching. So that gave my clients and I the opportunity to really dive in, and it gave us the time and the space to dump out all the puzzle pieces. And as you have done too, Claudia, and with both of our training in applied functional medicine and different holistic modalities, we would look at their labs, and I would look at functional tests such as stool tests and organic acids. But I would really, really get to know the person that was sitting in front of me. And in getting to know the person that was sitting in front of me, we could come up with the best protocol to address, the imbalances in their gut microbiome and to support cortisol regulation and hormones and all of that. And while that would be enough for some people, a lot of people it just wasn't enough. So in my coaching, I really began to dive much deeper into their emotional state and look for blocks there. Um, Look for trapped emotions in the body that were creating trapped energy and look for spiritual like misalignment. Like, where were they feeling disconnected from self? And when I say self, I'm talking about like your divine self, like this disconnect from their creator, from the source of love. And let me tell you, if you spend your days trying to look for validation outside of yourself, look for worth outside of yourself, chronically people pleasing, living with really leaky boundaries because you're seeking that worth, that love, that validation outside of yourself, you had better believe that you will remain sick. And one of the biggest
Mhm.
complaints that I would get from women who would land here on my runway, and I know that this is one of yours too, is fatigue. Like,
Mhm.
and I would have women write on their intake form, chronic fatigue. Number one, chronic fatigue, over and over and over again. I would see this. And so in my work with people and my unpacking of their symptomology and their history, I began to ask deeper questions, more questions about the repeated thoughts that went on in their mind,
Mhm.
their life experiences, any trauma that they had experienced along the way, their discontent, where I wanted to know about their divine discontent. What are the longings of their heart? What did they really, really want to do? And I started to see patterns connecting
Mhm.
them to their chronic fatigue. There was no amount of adaptogenic herbs that I could recommend that was going to shift their fatigue. But as we started to lean more into why they were chronically people pleasing and tighten up their leaky boundaries and address whether or not they were using their voice. That's the
Mhm.
throat chakra,
Mhm.
thyroid. We see hypothyroid is so prominent, especially today. So, as we began to lean into those areas more in my coaching work with clients, that is when I would really start to see the healing unfold for people. And
Mhm.
that is when I would see people say, I have so much more energy.
Mhm.
And of course, properly hydrating and eating an anti-inflammatory diet and getting outside and moving your body in the sunshine, those were all contributing factors to them feeling better. But it really was when women start to address the deeper things that the healing unfolds and unlocks. So for me, that is where I go. That is very much what I will lean into if we're not addressing the metaphysical, which addressing metaphysical in that's that whole process of restoring one's well-being by addressing the energetic, the emotional, and the spiritual root causes. Dis-ease. I don't love labels at all. Don't like labels because labels will oftentimes what they do is they'll give us these symptoms to lean into. Now you have a label, and uh, in and of itself, it becomes a limitation. And what we're really doing is we want to understand why these symptoms are even here, because the symptoms that show up for us are they're love notes from the body. They're love notes from the divine that are saying, "Hey, pay a little more attention. There's something here for you. And I'm inviting you to take a look. What do you need more of? What do you need less of?" So, when we recognize that we are so much more than just this physical body, that we're vibrational beings, that our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, our connection to divine truth, all of those things, when we recognize that they shape our health, that invites us to go there, like, go
Mhm.
there. Absolutely still eat healthy anti-inflammatory diets and reduce your toxins and do all of the other things, but when we're addressing from that level, that's where it again unlocks the healing, and everything starts to become easier. It's like it flows. You
Mhm.
want to take care of your body. You want to do all of the things. It's not so hard. So
Mhm.
that's why I today lean in so heavily to that in my work with clients, and what led me down that rabbit hole. Again, when I started many years ago, and even when I got training in applied functional medicine, I was just so I think at the time I was so excited to, oh my gosh, now I understand root causes and I can look
Mhm.
at the gut and I could recommend all of these supplements that are going to just fix everything. This just feels so magical. And then over time, that really didn't feel good to me anymore
Yeah.
because it wasn't enough. It just
Mhm.
wasn't enough, and, it felt very disingenuous, and I didn't feel like I was in integrity because, again, if we're not addressing all the things, then what are we doing?
Yes, so well said. And I agree with you. And you really opened my eyes in a lot of ways because I have felt that same um, discomfort, if you will, especially in, well, personally, which we'll get to later on, but in my coaching practice as well with clients, because yes, we learned how to address the root causes.
Mhm,
And functional medicine, functional health is wonderful. And it
mhm.
has opened a lot of people's eyes into, improving their diet, their lifestyle. And of course, like you said, those things do matter. But I also felt that I didn't want to just be pushing protocols and
Yeah,
supplements to
yeah.
clients because there's so much more to it. And
Mhm.
I find from a lot of your influence, I am now challenging clients differently to look
Yes.
at all the areas of their life. Where are they feeling
Mhm.
discontent? What are the thoughts and the words that they use every day that can be causing inflammation in the body?
Yes.
So, a lot of the women that are listening here are in midlife, in
Mhm.
perimenopause and beyond. And you and I are in it as well, supporting
Yeah,
one another.
yeah.
Why is this such a challenging time for women as well as transformational?
Ah, the
Mhm,
midlife awakening.
mhm.
And we're both in it. I will be 50 in June, and I have to say that my perimenopausal years, this last decade of my life, has been, the most transformative and at the same time, the most twisty, turny, lots of different bumps. It's not been without pain, it's not been without suffering, but all of it because I've used it and continued to be a seeker of truth. And I've used it to help me to continue to lean in and learn more about what is my body asking me for more of and less of, that divine discontent. I can say that it truly is an awakening. So, why is this season an awakening for so many people? And I'm going to continue to call it that. And I know you do too, because I think our worlds can very easily, again, throw a label on the perimenopausal and early menopausal years as being like hell. The discontent and the uncomfortableness that is found in this season is there for us. And so we've got declining hormones, right? So the hormones are declining. And as hormones are declining, we do become more stress sensitive. What we were able to tolerate in our younger years when we had really robust hormones, we're just not, but we're not meant to tolerate it. This is part of that divine sacred invitation to take a look at your life, a really humble and honest look at your life, and assess what can come with me and what cannot come with me, what does not serve me. This season of my life is when I really, really started to take a look at my chronic people pleasing. It was not something that I was unaware of. I started therapy in my 20s. I read Codependent No More multiple times by Melanie Beattie. And I've been, through different coaching programs. Like, I was so aware that this was something that was a pain point for me. But in midlife, my leaky boundaries, even the boundaries that were better than they used to be because of the work that I had been doing, it became intolerable for me because, again, we're more stress sensitive. We've got the ovaries kind of piecing out, and the adrenals, which manage cortisol, are very sensitive. We've got thyroid here. Thyroid is like the canary in the coal mine. So our thyroids are responding. Like, we're responding to all the stressors, and we can't do things in life the way we used to. And that goes for everything from working out to maybe perhaps it's the way we used to eat and pack our schedule. And we've got women too in midlife where even within the family structure, this is a season where we're no longer chasing after toddlers, unless you maybe became a mom late in life. But you've got teens and young adults, and so there's a lot of shifting. And in this space of uncomfortability, the divine discontent, taking a look at what can come with us and what doesn't. You've got children that are preparing to leave the nest, or maybe they have. I'm at that season where I've got, gosh, how are they? 20, 18, 20 and 22-year olds. And it stirs up inside of us these questions like, what do I want the next half of my life to look like? What do I actually want to do with my days? What is most important to me?
Mm,
At the end of my lifespan, what do I want to look back on my life and feel really, really good about? Am I going to feel really good about the things that I engage with right now that are draining me, that have me feeling at the end of the day like I want to cry? Like, is that
mm,
what I want to take with me? So, midlife, for a variety of reasons, it stirs a lot up. It has us looking at our relationships, every one of our relationships, whether that's with a life partner, a spouse, with our parents. Our parents are aging. We're becoming more cognizant that they're not going to be around for forever. We take a look at relationships with friends, and there are actually a lot of relationships that start to feel like they're expiring because we're also taking a deeper look at our values. So it's certainly a season of a lot of good. And yet at the same time, the reality is it to get the good out of it, to alchemize from all the hard and turn it into good, we have to show up for it. We have to show up for us and for this and accept the invitation.
yes. Yes. And it can feel really difficult. But
Yes. Yeah.
when we get honest with ourselves, it can also be so freeing
Oh,
because you know where the discontent is. If you sit
100%.
and pause and really listen to yourself and where you're feeling pain in your life. I'm not just saying physical
Mhm.
pain, like whether it's your relationship, whether it's your job, whether it's a friendship, or like you said, a parent. Maybe there's something that you're feeling resentment or anger,
Mhm. Mhm.
frustration. It needs to be addressed. And
Mhm.
obviously, there's different ways of going about it. But you can't ignore it. And I actually just said this to a client yesterday, and she had tears in her eyes because she recently, they're in midlife, a lot of my clients, and
Mhm.
she said, she goes, I have several friends who died of heart attacks in the last couple of years and another who had a stroke. And she's like really pleasant and kind of giggles. And
Mhm.
I just got really serious with her. And I said, you're dealing with so much grief
Yeah.
and you need to
Yeah.
allow yourself to grieve. And
Yes.
tears welled up.
Yep.
Tears welled
Yes.
up. We often just want to stuff those emotions away, the stuff, the scary stuff, the things that we don't want to
Mhm.
face. And ladies, it is not serving you.
No, no. What you stuff down, what you don't address will show up for you. That's the
Mhm.
metaphysical. It's gonna show up for you in, um, hypothyroidism, chronic headaches, gosh, I was exploring with a client recently. We were exploring, she had a lot of left side pain that she was getting in her body and her ankle and her knee and her shoulder. And we were exploring it. And the left, when we're carrying a lot of pain on the left side, there's an imbalance in the feminine
Mhm.
and the masculine. So she's taking on. And so as we started to unpack it, she was reflecting that she was stepping more and more into the masculine, and that's a form of control. And she was resisting allowing her husband to take over certain things. She was resisting even tapping in and trusting God, trusting her higher power in all of it, and that had her wanting to control and grip and at the more that she started working through that, and I had given her some work to do with some journaling and some she was doing some mirror work. She was feeling less and less and less pain on that side of her body. So that's just an example of how these physical pains can be these beautiful invitations for us. I mean, I joke with so many of my clients that will come here and walk away just completely transformed in every area of their life, their marriages, their relationships, their purpose. Some of them have chosen to switch careers, and they're like, "How did this happen? Because I came to you with an H. pylori infection."
Right.
Um, and I again always, always, always look for the metaphysical connection. So a lot of the questions that I'll ask my clients, whether I'm asking them to verbally reflect or to reflect in light in writing, and when we're getting into the trenches in the coaching, are for them to tap in. And they don't even necessarily always realize that they're like, that's a weird question that Jen's asking, but that's because I'm looking to see, are there emotional blockages
Mm.
that are creating that like energy stagnation there that's then affecting the physiology. You were reflecting on grief and a client that's been going through a lot of grief. I mean, I know I can speak to that firsthand, and that actually was something that for me, as I experienced deep, deep, deep grief with someone that we both knew. She was a mentor of mine for years, and she and I were extremely, extremely close. And when Molly died, she passed away in June of 2023. But when she died, it hit my body so hard, and I know all the, quote unquote, all the things. And here I'm running stool tests. I remember I ran two different stool tests to see, to figure this thing out, because it hit my gut so hard. And I'm like, this is metaphysical. Like this is not actually like, there's no probiotic, prebiotic, like there's nothing for me to take here.
Mm.
I know that it's in the trapped emotions that I'm struggling to let go of. And I was struggling for a variety of reasons. And I needed to dig pretty darn deep to understand and unpack where that was coming from. But if I didn't go there and go to the depths that I went to, my physiology would have continued to break down, and I would just be swallowing, copious amounts of supplements to no avail.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't have called me higher. I mean, the work that I dug into, the depth of the depths that I went to investigate and explore my grief and understand it, um, it has changed me in every way. So again, going back to like midlife, why is this a season where we can feel so much uncomfortability and the pains seem to be so loud? I really believe that it's for us. It's
Yeah.
so much is for us. And then as you and I both teach our clients and we invite them, it's a time to slow down. And,
Mm.
the voices in our head say, you can't slow down because we're
Mm.
programmed. We're programmed to not slow down. We're programmed by the society to keep going, keep going, keep going. Stay in the masculine. That's a whole
Yeah.
other podcast episode you and I could
Yes.
have, because we talk a lot behind the scenes on
Hmm.
how our society has programmed women to be too masculine. We're
Yes.
over masculinized.
Mhm.
And in doing that, we're going against our divine design. So, of
Yeah.
course, we have inflammation and tightness, and we can't sleep and we can't poop, and we've got like knots in our shoulders. I do
Mhm.
believe there's a subconscious fear in slowing down, because if we slow down, when we look within,
Oh,
that's
it's also
when the
different.
scaries they come to the surface, right? And but sometimes we need the pain, maybe perhaps it is a physical pain, to get great enough for us to slow down and get quiet enough to hear what we need to hear. And it's not always comfortable to hear the things. Very, very, very humbling. Part of my journey, um, here I was, this was 5 years ago. I had my own dark night of the soul season, and I was doing all the things, running a really successful coaching business, actually had multiple businesses, raising children. On the
Mhm.
outside, I looked so successful. Like I had this, everything was together, and I was running the story that I should have it all together and I should know everything. And God forbid I tell anyone that inside I feel like I'm dying, because that's admitting weakness. I was working, one of my part-time jobs on top of running a full-time business was I was working for the School of Applied Functional Medicine, and I was part of a small cohort of other practitioners, and we would use ourselves as case studies to learn. And we ran a bunch of functional tests all at the same time, and we were going to bring them and learn off of each other's functional tests. And I get mine back. I had done like four at the same time. I was my sickest client. I didn't have clients that sick. And it was so eye opening. It was like this gut punch to me, because internally, when I slowed down, which I did everything I could to not slow down, I was really good about like coaching others on this, but I was not a good client behind the scenes. Like I wasn't walking my talk, and that was very unintegrous of me. And um, so when I did pause and I slowed down enough to hear, I actually heard, because I had a dark night of the soul, knees hit the ground moment where I said, I need help. I need help in
Mm,
my physical body. Mentally, I'm slipping. My marriage was not in a good place. We had been married
mm,
for 22 years, 20 at that time. And I had one foot out the door, but I didn't know what
mm,
to do. I was like, I have no time for divorce. It's like,
mhm,
how do we even do that on top of everything else? But yet I had no time to rebuild the marriage. It was my big thing is I have no time. I didn't understand my stories until I quieted and slowed down. So I had my dark night of the soul moment and my knees hit the floor and I cried out and I said, I need help with all the things, absolutely everything. I felt very, very disconnected from God. I've always had faith, but my faith had different levels too. And I just
mhm,
I wasn't feeling connected. That scared me. And I felt very, very alone. And in that moment in my life, when I was quiet enough, I actually heard God say, and I wrote it in a journal, you got to tear the house down. And I wrote back, I wrote all of it, question mark. And what did that mean? And within like 2 weeks, I got matched up with for me, it was the most amazing. She was my match. I hired her as my coach. She became my mentor. It's the one that we talked about because she ended up
mm,
passing away years later. But that experience of me taking care of me and slowing down, and yes, I had to hire someone to do it, and I had to like give up that whole shame even around that, as if I was some Wonder Woman who didn't, I invite people to come here and hire me for help, and I was like
mhm,
too prideful to do that myself, and it was the absolute best thing that I ever, ever, ever did for myself. But it was also the most humbling and honest. I had to get really, really honest because what was I doing? I was gonna pay someone to help me, and I was gonna, like, bypass my
yeah.
own work because 'cause we're really good at
Exactly.
that too,
Oh,
like, we're
yes.
really good at that too, and,
Mhm,
I certainly wrestled a lot, but, I did essentially end up tearing the entire house down to understand why I was so inflamed. Why was I doing all the things right? I mean, I could not have done it more, quote, unquote, "perfect," and yet even trying to do it perfect was inflammatory for me because I was looking outside of myself constantly for things to fix me instead of taking the time to go within. And that was, my great midlife awakening invitation. Well, I should say it was my great invitation that led to the midlife awakening for me. And I'm so grateful for it. Was it pretty? And no, I mean, again, you're not only my colleague, you're one of my best friends. So you know the behind the scenes in that. And it was really, really ugly at times, but it's the muck, through the muck and the mire is where we grow.
we know that trauma plays a role, and we all experience some
Mhm.
level of trauma. Can you dive into how like yours was connected to that, and or what you see in your clients?
I'll share with you because I know that this is something that we are talking about today
Mhm.
on the podcast is a tool. I'm going to call it a tool, but it's really just this catalyst that kind of swings the door open to this healing work that you and I are talking about here on my journey. Through, I just shared at my dark night of the soul, and then I found my own coach and the mentor to help me because everything that I go through teaches me more about the human mind, the human, just being a human. We're here in this world. We're in the worlds, we're not of the worlds, but like, how do you do this whole being a human thing? So, walking through my own work and then everything that I did, every person that's before me is teaching me. So, after Molly died, she ended up having just a terminal cancer that was like a freight train. And after she died, my grief was so intense that it was breaking down my physical body. And I knew right away, I was like, this is nervous system. Um, I don't need more supplements, even though I tried all the things to throw out my gut. But um, I was back on my knees in prayer and saying, there's got to be another way. I've done a lot and I'm very, very open. to anything, but I don't, I don't need to go revisit a lot of the things that I've done. My list is long. Probably spent over $100,000 in like my exploration of healing.
Mm,
So in it, through again a lot of synchronicities, I got connected to somebody who guided me through an MDMA journey. And it wasn't lost to me that the street nickname for MDMA, it's not it's a little bit different because it's street and all that, but it's Molly. So
mhm,
I had this um, a very strong intuitive hit when I got introduced to it, and I started to really learn what MDMA does. It calms the amygdala. It kind of just takes a vacation for the day. So we're not getting triggered by fear and resistance, because I really, really wanted to understand underneath what was still dysregulating my nervous system. So I read all the books. I'd been in therapy. I'd been in coaching. Like I had a very good conceptual understanding, and I'd moved the needle in a lot of areas of my life. But yet, after Molly died, and I was having this like it was a very, very metaphysical breakdown, and these symptoms that were showing up. I knew I had to go at it and like really, really go at it. And so when I got introduced to MDMA in a guided therapeutic setting, and I did it, it helped. The amount of healing that unfolded in 6 hours for me was like I felt like 10 years of therapy in that 5 6 hour session with my guide. And I was really, really, really able to get inside the constructs of my own mind, the beliefs that
mm,
I had constructed from conditioning that came from my childhood, early, early childhood. I had made a decision based on just the environment that I was raised in. My dad was a Vietnam vet and he experienced a lot of PTSD. My
mm,
mom and him got married only 5 months after he got out of the Marines. And I'm their first child. I'm the oldest of four, and I'm very, very sensitive. My sensitivity is my superpower. And also, all of our gifts and our superpowers have shadow sides. And getting to know and understand our shadow side um, is so important because when we can recognize what our shadow side is, we can spend more time in the gifted part of it, not the shadow we can catch. But my shadow side for being being highly sensitive was I was often hypersensitive. And that led me to read the room from the time I was a very little girl. And in reading the room, I didn't like it was very uncomfortable when people were unhappy, very uncomfortable when I could read negative moods. And so I became a chronic people pleaser. I would morph myself into what I perceived that other people wanted me to be, and that gave me a hit of feeling very special. It made me feel very important. And so the story that I told that I learned inside the medicine when I was on my first journey was that I constructed this belief that I was not special, inherently wasn't special, but I could be special if I pleased people. But you cannot have a boundary. You
mm,
cannot have boundaries if you're a chronic people pleaser who is people pleasing so that you are being validated. You are receiving worth. That's how you get your love in this world. And so it was this story that I constructed as a very little girl that I lived into and I played out. And I mean, I was the fixer of everybody. I mean, there was good reason that my first therapist wanted me to read Codependent No More. I mean, and again, even though I did the things and I improved on these dynamics in relationships over my adult years, I still hadn't gotten to the root of it, and I still didn't understand that this is something. It was like a prison that
mm,
I had constructed, and I was living in my own self-constructed prison. And the MDMA, the medicine, gave me the key to go into it and unlock the door that was never locked to begin with because it was a construct of my mind. And so I was then able to dissolve and take it down. And I'm sharing that little bit of my story here with the audience because when you ask me, like, what are the things that I've observed in women in midlife and the things that we struggle with? Even though the details of each of our stories and the conditioning that we've experienced is different, it will always be unique to each and every one of us. We could be in the same exact family and have
Mhm.
very, very similar conditioning, and yet have vastly different constructs,
Mhm.
very different beliefs that we construct from the conditioning because we're that unique. It is
Yeah.
a lens that only we look through. At the same time, even though we're all so different, we all are so similar. We're so
Mhm.
similar because we are all longing for the same thing. We were created to
Mhm.
embody our divine self, the divinity that is within it, of which we've been created from.
Mhm.
That's love. The only thing that is real is love.
Mhm.
And so, what are we all searching for? We're searching for love. We're searching for that reassurance that we are unconditionally loved, that we're good, that we're comfortable in our own being, that we don't want to, even though we don't want to search outside of ourselves all the time, looking for validation, looking for worth, looking for the accolades of the world. That is what energetically exhausts us, breaks us down, and creates dis-ease. So then what happens is we live out of alignment with our own divine design. My experience going in with the medicine and MDMA, and as soon as I did it, I immediately knew it was something that I was going to bring into my work with people. It was
Mhm.
that profound and it made everything click for me. I'm like, oh my gosh. Because within 2 weeks of my first journey, all I had gone through a long stretch of GI issues where I like couldn't get off the toilet, and no matter what I did, like it didn't matter. I mean, even the stool tests would come back and we're like, not really anything here. Must be nervous system, and I'm like, yeah, no shit. Like, yeah, of course it's nervous system. But within two, it was gone, just like 100%. Actually, even the next morning when I woke up, I was like, oh my gosh, it was like the first time since Molly died that I haven't had like, you know, like explosiveness, and because that was the break, that was the metaphysical, and I had released so much inside the medicine safely because it's very safe to do that because your
Yeah.
amygdala is not sounding the alarm.
Mhm.
And afterwards, I would just continue to integrate and challenge all the narratives, and it opened my whole world up because what I really started to see after is how much we're programmed in this
Yes.
world and how many narratives are like shoved in our face and we just buy into them. And we're not stopping to go, is this actually true? Is this my truth? Is this true for
Mhm.
me? Is this good for me? We're not. We're giving our power away and we're looking outside. And the truth is, all answers are within us. So every one of us has been conditioned from the time we came into this world. And we're being conditioned by people like our parents, our original environment, like the people that have the most influence over us, they're conditioned. So that's where we get the ancestral trauma, like the transgenerational things. Somebody's got to stop it. Right. And so, us here as women, when our pain gets great enough, are we going to answer the call? Are we going to lean into it and we're going to do something about it? Or are we going to, well, shove it down? It's like trying to take a balloon. This is what midlife does. You're trying to take the balloon that you've been shoving down your whole life. It won't go on, and shove it down under the water. It won't go down anymore. It keeps pushing up. And there's no amounts of, again, quick fixes, shiny objects, biohacking tools. I mean, again, you could get up every day, you could cold plunge and sauna and eat the most perfect diet and all the things, right? But if you're
Mhm.
not addressing that crap, the BS that you're shoving down, it's going to keep bubbling up, up, up. What are we all longing for? We're all longing to embody truth, I believe, and really, really step into who we are as uniquely created individuals, know who we are in true essence of self, and bring that forward in the world comfortably. Like, I don't have to be anybody else but me. I love me, and me
Mhm.
has boundaries, and
Yeah.
me knows what I need and any
Mhm.
given moment to help feel and function my very best. And from there, all decisions come so much easier.
It was so well said, and obviously, I'm, like, shaking my head in agreement. Again, you and I have these conversations in depth offline because we feel so strongly about this as we journey through midlife together, and, as we have both looked within and looked at our lives and saw the leaks and the things that needed to be addressed.
Yeah.
You have opened my eyes to a lot of things, and you told me about your MDMA journey. And I think at first I was like, "Oh, I don't know about this." And because that was my resistance. And
Yeah.
I'm definitely, I would say, a purist in some ways, not all.
Mhm.
Um, but I also had a lot of fear because I knew I had discomfort. It was yelling at me for years, for
Mhm.
years. And I did what I knew to do, which was the functional testing and the supplements
Mhm.
and the different modalities that, again, are all helpful. But I was still not feeling, I was feeling content, but I wanted to feel happy. I wanted to feel
Mhm.
fulfilled in a way that I wasn't getting by doing all of that. And I had to really take a hard look at myself in regards to my behavior, my mindset, but I also had to take a hard look at my romantic relationship.
Mhm.
And the last few years for the two of us have been very difficult. We have also been on the verge of ending the relationship and having some of the hardest
Mhm.
conversations that we have ever had.
Mhm.
And what I wanted to do was better understand my own wounding and what I was bringing to the relationship, because it is so easy to blame the other person.
Mhm.
And, you were talking about the societal programming. I mean, we are told, men are toxic, and there's a lot of blaming of men. And men can actually be very good providers. They could be a safe space. They have their own wounding and sensitivity that is not being talked about out there in the
Mhm.
world. If
Yep.
anything, they're being told that they're weak if they show emotion, or that they're just not good enough. And Jen, again, opened my eyes to MDMA and digging deeper. And she planted the seed for me. And when I was ready, I asked her to guide me in a journey.
Mhm.
And it has been one of the most profound experiences that I have ever had in my life. And I'm 42. And I don't know that I did as many things as you did for, in the quest for healing over the years, but I've done the therapy, I've done tapping and mindset work and meditation. Um, but what I didn't know was how much my own upbringing impacted me.
Mhm.
So for those of you listening, I have shared here in previous episodes my trauma growing up with an
Mhm.
alcoholic father who was also a Vietnam vet, like your dad, who had a ton of PTSD and unfortunately looked to alcohol to numb his pain. He
Yeah.
didn't know any better,
Yeah.
and him and my mom did the best they could, bringing me and my sister
Mhm.
into the world. And one of the questions you had asked me was, well, what was your role growing up in your home?
Mhm.
And I said, well, I was the person to protect my mom and my sister. Duh.
Mhm. Mhm.
So what did that do for me? We talked a little bit about masculinity earlier, and it caused me to be very masculine in a lot of ways, to be
Mhm.
the man. And also, the narrative was that men were unsafe and couldn't really be trusted. So I had to
Mhm.
depend on myself. And
Mhm.
then I had relationships that didn't go well and men who didn't treat me well. And then I found a man who is wonderful and
Mhm.
treats me very well. But I had some trust issues. I
Mhm.
had some of that old wounding, the stories. So you really helped me to see a different side of him through that journey.
Mhm. Mm. Well, you were able to go into those constructs safely inside the medicine.
Yeah.
Like, you had tried and worked on yourself in many different ways, as you said, therapy and coaching. And in all the years that I've known you, you're a seeker. You've been seeking contentment and health optimization in so many different ways. But inside the medicine, you were able to go, Claudia, to places that you didn't even know were there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I said was, my dad died however many, probably about 10 years ago. And I remember just thinking, oh, okay, like that's behind
Yes.
me. Doesn't affect me. Like I made
Mhm.
peace with it because he asked for forgiveness. And, on his deathbed, we had a really lovely conversation. And I just kind of tucked that away. And I
Mhm.
really didn't realize how much it was impacting me now. So that
Mhm.
really gave me clarity.
Oh my goodness. And I can attest, having guided you through that beautiful sacred journey, to how much you've been changing and evolving and growing
Mhm.
in the months that have followed that for you, because the real magic, the transformation happens in the integration. The
Yep.
integration is so important. You have to keep showing up for it, but you're showing up for it and for yourself in ways that you never did before,
Mhm.
and you're softening. And in you softening, and you're slowing down, and you're really able to take a look at your life, going back to
Mhm.
the beginning of this podcast conversation, on taking a look at the things that can't come with you and the
Yep.
things that can, or the things that might need changing or altering, and you're slowing down. You have more solid boundaries than I've ever seen you have before, and you're
Mhm.
honoring yourself. And in it, every relationship in your life is changing because of
Yep.
you doing your work. You're no longer chasing after all of these people that you love and trying to fix them. That
Right.
is a side effect of doing what we do with for a living. Anybody who happens to be
Mhm.
listening to this, who's in any type of a career where maybe you're in a, I'm going to call it a healing space. I mean, whether that's a
Yep.
medical profession, a coach, a therapist, um, eh, the list goes on and on, but we do have this tendency to take on what is our calling, but
Mhm.
to use it in a way that we're fixing. Like, we perceive
Yep.
it's our job to go fix people, and we worry and we know all the things. And so when we see our loved ones suffering, we think that it's our job, even if we're energetically chasing them and gripping. And what I've witnessed in you is you're not doing that anymore. And in you not doing that anymore, your people that you love the most are actually rising, like they're changing.
Mhm. Yes. And it feels like a weight lifted because I no longer have that responsibility. Other
Mhm,
people's health, other people's choices are not mine. And
mhm,
wanting to protect others was actually enabling them in a lot of
mhm,
ways. And
mhm.
we see this. I see this with clients, and a lot of women they'll call themselves type A, or they give themselves
Yes.
these labels, right? And it's controlling. And I'm always
Mhm.
now I'm starting to ask these questions like, well, where is that coming from?
Yeah.
That wanting to control, that wanting to fix, the perfectionism. My goodness, that was another challenge of mine, and
Mhm.
how debilitating that was, especially in my business.
And now you're able to, because you've gone so deep into your own, psyche, and understanding the constructs of your own mind, you understand where the perfectionism came from. That was just a defense that
Yes.
you formed to protect
Mm.
yourself. And the
Yep.
protection came from being a little girl, within her home, who didn't innately feel safe,
Right.
because the parent figure that was in your life wasn't stable for you. So when we can understand those things and really see those things, that's where we can get in and really shift the nervous system out of the simmering fight or flight. I know that you lived with simmering fight or flight for your whole life, which had you
Mhm.
forming your, it was like the hard shell. You and
Yep.
I, another thing that we have in common is we're both like, the born and raised Jersey girls. I don't live in
Yeah.
Jersey anymore. I'm in Pennsylvania, but luckily I can still drive and see you. But Jersey Northeasterners, people will joke like we've got this like tough outer shell.
Yep.
Um, it's kind of true, but there's some of the conditioning though, right? Like, we're a little
Mhm.
harsher up here in the
Yep.
Northeast. And but for you, you now understand that that tough outer shell was just erected to protect you when you were a little girl. But we
Mhm.
take those things into adulthood and into our lives, and when we walk around with that, what I look at and you look at, even when we're looking from a functional like standpoint, and we're running like an HTMA, a hair tissue mineral analysis test with clients, we can see that shell. It's wild. You can feel it. Like, people can energetically. First time you and I ever met in person, like a decade ago, it was like a book signing or something, and I remember I was like, "Wow, she is Jersey girl. She's got that. She's got a shell." You are like the sweetest person I know. You really truly are. Like you have the
Thank
kindest
you.
heart and you are so feminine. And yet that masculine, the shell was so masculine for you.
Mhm.
But what we can see even on HTMA tests is like we can literally see a calcium shell because the body is that protective that it will build calcium up in the body because when we do that, it actually numbs us a little bit and emotionally numbs us and it helps us to be able to survive perhaps being in a home where there's an alcoholic parent or there's abuse. And so it's neat. We can see it. And yet when we see it, I'm like, that's not just about taking supplements to shatter the calcium shell, because if we did
Mhm.
that, um, we wouldn't feel very safe. And so
Mhm.
you do need to do the emotional work alongside of the physiological work. Because even when we're working with people with really, really, really thick calcium shells, they do need some the emotional work because
Mhm.
otherwise that calcium shell will start to break down and that's there to protect them. So you want to understand yourself. It's the most empowering state when you can understand yourself and oh, these are my things. Like your wounding now.
Right.
And in that gives you more and more freedom to
Mhm.
explore who are you and who am I? And oh my gosh, I'm loving things that I didn't even know I loved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jen, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom. Ladies, I'm going to drop any links that Jen has in the show notes. But Jen, where can women find you just to learn more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have a website, jenniferragazzo.com. So I'm on Instagram and I have a Substack community. I have two different Substack communities. One, I just write articles on, it's called Soulful Living. And the other one is Sacred Healing with MDMA. If that is something that is of interest to you, if you're curious, if we piqued your interest today on that conversation, you can go over there. We have a free group and a paid community as well, where you can learn more about what that looks like in taking your own journey into finding true essence of self. And yeah, and in Instagram, I'm fairly active. I've shifted a lot as I've learned more about my own nervous system needs. But yeah, it's been a pleasure to be here and be part of this conversation with all of you listening today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hey, before you go, if you're resonating with this podcast and realize that your symptoms are anything but normal, my comprehensive program, the Perimenopause Method, may be a great fit for you. My team and I help women in their mid-30s to early 50s improve symptoms such as fatigue, disrupted sleep, anxiety, erratic moods, bloating, and much more. We do this by utilizing advanced testing, a personalized plan tailored to you, women's health and hormones education, and ongoing support so you never feel alone and you get results. If you're ready to commit to your health and feel like yourself again, but even better, check out the link in the show notes to learn more about the Perimenopause Method. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not, nor do I act as a doctor or any other medical professional. I am not providing healthcare, medical services, or attempting to diagnose, treat, prevent, or cure any physical, mental, or emotional disease or condition. The information shared is not intended to be a substitute for the professional medical advice provided by your own medical or mental health provider.